was warming the tires. Had to put a bit more heat in them.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today you join me absolutely freezing in the 2025 718 Spyder RS. Even though I might get hypothermia, this is still my favorite Porsche I've ever driven for the street, and let me tell you why. First of all, Porsche really doesn't like making roofless GT products. Forget RS products. This would be the only roofless RS product in modern times. But the only other GT car would be the 991 Speedster, which was a much softer version of a GT3, where this takes a GT4 RS and smoothens out a little bit, but you maintain the 9,000 RPM, 4-liter, and a flat 6. And you hear that little blip on every upshift and every downshift. You have the intake right behind your ear. This car feels like you're driving a factory cup. Porsche waited far too long to give the 718 or Boxster platform the proper ingredients it needed to be a real 911 fighter. They finally did with it. The 718 profile gives you a feel that the 911s just can't. The quick dart of the front end, the overall balanced mid-corner, part of that being the mid-engine layout, but it feels like a much smaller car than an 911. In reality, it really isn't if you look at the specifications, but you feel like you're driving a sports car with not supercar power, but Porsche supercar power, so GT3 power. You feel like you're driving a sports car with proper power, instead of a 911 that really comes alive on the track. On the street, pushing a 911 hard is nowhere near as fun as it is to push this. Unlike GT products of old, the ride quality is sublime. You could think you're in a luxury car if you were blindfolded and not completely frozen. Well, you'd also have to be deaf, because luxury cars don't really make that noise typically. This car might not be as light as you'd expect. To be honest, 3,200 pounds for a car of this size isn't anything crazy. The steering ratio combined with the bite of the front end, however, makes this feel like a little tiny car. You get on the power and the rear goes out, and it's almost like, I normally say in a negative sense, where steering on an electric power steering cars is like a dial. I don't mean the steering is like a dial, the corrections is like turning a dial. It's so easy. The rear end can be completely loose, and it'll just rotate whatever you want with the front end. When the rear end is out, you feel like you almost have mind control over this thing. It goes exactly where your brain thinks it's going. You don't even realize you're doing the action of the steering. And to have that in a modern car with electric powered steering is really rare. It's so predictable and so much fun at the limit. The traction control will honestly let you do a lot more than I was expecting from a big manufacturer like Porsche. Herc on Evo. Sounds pretty good as well. I usually consider Porsche products too clinical, too boring, almost too precise, if that's possibly a negative. It would be a complete lie to say anything like that about this car. Bear in mind it's mid 30 degrees and this car's on semi-slick, so it's not gonna go too crazy, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. The stiff springs mode in this and most modern Porsches, maybe a GT RS would be different, I'm sure it would, because it's much more configurable spring-wise, but you don't feel much of a difference. I don't even really notice it. I'd say it's 5 to 10% stiffer, maybe a bit more than that. Maybe some angry German would be mad I said that, but it's really not a noticeable difference. I forget I turn it off sometimes and it still rides just as well as any normal car. Honestly, this car is so comfortable, and these buckets, it's the same seat as the 918 seat's always been, but it's so much more comfortable than the last generation of 918 seats I've sat in, 991s, 991.2. I don't know what they did or if it's just the Alcantara, but you could literally daily drive this car and then you put in a manual, put the exhaust on, turns into a whole new car. It's a completely different range of emotions to most Porsches. If you look outside the Porsche world, the value proposition at $200,000 is hard to get your head around. McLaren makes a lot of really fast cars in this price point, new and used. The C801 is just, it's an industry destroyer, really, performance-wise. But if you look inside the Porsche space, the 992.1 Turbo just sold for over $400,000 on Bring a Trailer. A 992.1 3RS is over $400,000, still unless there's a lot of miles. GT3 Tourings are now up in the threes. This is so much more fun than any of those cars for the street, in my opinion. I love a manual transmission as much as anybody, and this kind of car with this high revving engine, I love this PDK. It has so much emotion on upshift, on downshift. The new Porsche manuals, I think honestly, people that couldn't even drive manual could drive them. The clutch is so light, the shifter goes in and out of gear easier than any other manual car I've ever driven. It's still fun to drive, but you're losing the performance and you're not gaining a lot of emotion, in my opinion. I think this is the perfect balance. I know people are upset it didn't come with a manual, but you can literally just go like this, and you're gonna turn on auto rev matching anyways, aren't you, in the manuals? It's the same thing. This is just quicker, and there's more emotion on the upshifts and the downshifts. There really is. I don't know if that's the intake or just the way they tune this transmission, but this is the most fun I've had shifting a dual clutch in any car, and that's coming from a McLaren lover who loves the way McLaren transmissions work. I think this is way more emotive than any other DCT I've driven. And then even though it's not that light with this big engine in there, it's really just maneuverable. It feels so small. There's a lot of weight up mid-corner steering feel wise, which you didn't really get in the later 991 generation GT3s. I haven't driven a 992, so I can't tell you. But comparing this to a 991 Speedster is night and day. This feels like a sports car with some supercar credibilities, where the Speedster feels like a luxury car priced and marketed like a supercar. It's hard in these temperatures, but I think we're really gonna have to warm up the tires here. And it's safe, you know, the safe thing is to warm them up. The car's telling me to upshift? Is this to upshift? That was an upshift, right? I think I did what I wanted. This right here should tell you everything you need to know about the Spyder RS. When you need it to be quiet and calm, it's quiet and calm, under 2,000 RPM, which is really where it ships if you don't have it in PDK Sport, which I never use because I'm driving aggressively, I drive a manual. But this is basically how it drives. You can drive this to work every day as long as it's warm, or you want to put the roof up, and it's comfortable. And then you press a few you flick the paddles a few times, and it's not comfortable, and it turns into a race car. Like this. To me, if you want a weekend toy Porsche, and you're not gonna you might go to the track 1 or 2 times a season, but you're not just living at the track, this is easily the Porsche to buy. Well, it is an RS product though, so the windshield will crack. But other than that,